They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I'm Lou Ruggieri, that's Jose Ortiz, and this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while, and I can almost promise that's going to be the case. This week we have a monster show for you, NFL laden as always. A lot to talk about. The second hour coming up, we have some NFL picks to go over, and put your money where your mouth is, which is our little betting segment now that gambling is a little more legalized across the country. Some NBA talk. We do have to talk NBA finals because those are going on despite the kind of the weird time of year that it is. A little bit, we're playing our favorite new game, Make No Mistake, or Give Me a Break, which is basically our version of a true-false, where we make statements and we kind of react to those. But first, we have to start the show off with the top 5 stories that we've decided in the NFL are happening right now. And you can chime in and follow us along. There's a variety of ways. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, we're part of the iHeartRadio podcasting lineup and the newly formed Amazon podcasting lineup. Spotify, YouTube, despite the lack of video at the moment, we're working on that. Instagram, Facebook, at the Benchwarmerz Podcast, Twitter at the BW Pod, and our email address, thebenchwarmerzpodcast at yahoo.com, Benchwarmerz with a Z for marketing purposes. Jose, crazy week 4 in the NFL, so let's just jump right into it. Story number 1 is the big story across the country. COVID strikes again. The Titans-Steelers game is postponed to week 7, and then we found out very late that the New England Patriots' Cam Newton got COVID and then caused just a catastrophe of play in the Patriots locker room, and we saw Jared Stidham perform pathetically against the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Right off the bat, your reaction to that?
Well, Hoyer wasn't much better than Stidham, in fairness. Stidham at least has the excuse of having only thrown, I believe, 4 passes in his career before that. So Hoyer was the one who really looked like he didn't belong on the field there. And as far as just when you think that things are going to getting back to normal, just when you're getting used to the NFL season, things are going well, then COVID strikes again, and it's just a constant reminder that I just don't understand why I just want it to be over so we can get back to normal. We just can't get comfortable right now. But thankfully the NFL acted quickly. They moved the games around, and the Chiefs. It seemed like Bill Belichick had figured something out defensively to kind of slow the Chiefs down, but his offense just wasn't able to put any points on the board. There was critical turnovers. I think Hoyer had a fumble around the 8-yard line. There was the interception that went off Edelman's hands. There was another interception on a deep ball. There was the no call on the fumble, the clear fumble, in my opinion, on Patrick Mahomes. It just seemed like the offense couldn't get it going. They couldn't get the right breaks. And here we are, Chiefs looking almost like who's going to beat them at this point.
Yeah, I think that I do wonder, I'm sure like everybody, how this game would have went differently if Cam Newton had been playing. Because, up until I think a few minutes left in the fourth quarter, this game was 13-10 Chiefs. And then all of a sudden, the Chiefs just, it feels like that the football gods just kind of bless them and have been blessing them with these just, these crazy, not that like they need even more ways to win, but for like last year, Patrick Mahomes gets the kneecap and suddenly we find out that he has like a double jointed knee, and then Matt Moore comes in and is like amazing for 2 games, and then they go on and just win. Honey Badger looks like the steal of the century for the Chiefs. He's been playing fantastic, and pick 6. It's hard to come back from that against a team like the Chiefs. So the Patriots 2-2, they're still pretty good. it's a shame that of all the games that the Patriots were going to play and have to be, stricken with COVID, against the Chiefs seems like kind of the worst case scenario. So,
and why couldn't it be like the 54th guy or the 53rd? No offense to the last guy on their bench or anything like that, but to have it be your starting quarterback who gets COVID.
It would have been nice if it was Brian Hoyer who got COVID.
Yeah. I mean, you hate to wish that on someone, but it just it was not a very good game. I do think that from watching that, the Patriots absolutely are a playoff team this year. We already know that about the Chiefs. I think we're just seeing two playoff teams, and the Patriots weren't at full strength.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I think they'll turn that around pretty quickly. The Patriots kind of always seem to find a way. Given, when they're at least where they're close to full strength. I do think that the Jared Stidham project is over before it's even began. I think that all that nonsense and hype we were listening to in the offseason is kind of, I think we can put that to bed because he looks okay, and he looked okay for a little while, but I mean, granted, it's a little premature. I mean, he's very young, but I just think that we're not going to see too much more of him unless we have to moving forward this season.
Well, I think Cam Newton might be out next week because he has to be out for a minimum of 10 games. So we're probably going to get the Stidham experience at least one more time, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's going to be unfortunate. I'm not necessarily looking forward to. I think that they play. I don't know who they play next week. Actually, I think they have a bye week next week. Actually,
I will look that up right now.
Yeah, because I don't see them on the schedule for Week 5. Oh no, they play the Broncos. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, they play the Broncos 4:25. All right, so I mean, Jared Stidham might be able to do something against the Broncos. Who knows? But let's see. So that's the top story in the NFL. The second story, and this, I almost want to just kind of not talk about this because it's just the Cowboys gave up 49 points, and this, as I mentioned this last week, this was the battle of the underachievers, and in a way. Objectively speaking, I'm glad that we finally got to see the Browns play at a level that the Browns' talent should play. Because Odell Beckham finally looked like Odell Beckham. Jarvis Landry he looks like a certifiable backup quarterback. He threw a touchdown to Odell Beckham.
That was a great throw.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then even without Nick Chubb for most of the game, Kareem Hunt just took over, and the Browns just ran all over the Cowboys. And my God, Dallas, this is the second week in a row that we've seen them dig themselves into a giant hole, and they stayed with the Browns for 14 points and then just got assaulted. And then in typical Dallas fashion, which seems to be their calling card, they dig themselves into a giant hole and then try to battle back, and then right at the end they lose and give it up. And I know that we're going to have some disagreements about Dak Prescott. He did have excellent numbers. I'll give him that. But so this leads to our stat of the week, by the way, which I'll throw in right now. Dak Prescott is the second player ever to throw for 450 yards in back-to-back games. And actually, he just took over that title because he threw for 500 for the third game. So now he's the leader of back-to-back-to-back games. But do you know who he was tied with? The only other player in NFL history to throw 450 yards in back-to-back games. It's
probably going to be. Well, what'd you say?
I think that this is just a perfect microcosm and a perfect example of why this is going to be a problem for the Cowboys. He's a recent player.
Okay.
This happened not very long ago.
Not very long ago. How about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Good guess. Right state, wrong team.
Okay, wait a minute.
Jameis
Winston.
Jameis Winston. Yeah. So, and I think that this Cowboys team is starting to look eerily like that Buccaneers team with a subpar quarterback and outstanding talent around him, and just too many mistakes on offense and defense. It's just I'm with the Cowboys. I hope they go 0-16. Let's just put it to bed.
Okay, before we do that, though, let me just respond because, first of all, the reason you are right, there is a similarity between what's happening with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what happened with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the past, and what happening with the Cowboys. They're getting their doors blown off, and then the Dak Prescott's having to come back. And same thing would happen with Jameis Winston. You get down a lot, and then you're having to come back. To say that Dak Prescott's a subpar quarterback, I'm just not sure. Like, one of my favorite things that happens when the Cowboys lose is to listen to Cowboys fans find a way to blame Dak Prescott for it. And okay, he threw one interception in the game, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 502 yards. Yet the loss is his fault, or like it's when your defense and his team put up 38 points. When you put up 38 points as an offense, that's a game you're supposed to win. This game is 150% on the Cowboys defense. I don't think Patrick Mahomes wins that game. I don't think Russell Wilson wins that game. I don't think 2007 Tom Brady wins that game. Your defense giving up that many points, you're just putting yourself in a hole. And it's impossible. It's almost impossible for someone to come back from that. And that interception at the end, like, you're just basically heaving it up. You're just throwing it, trying to make something happen. They're in rush mode. They're at the end of the game. They're miraculously, because of the way Dak Prescott was playing, even have a chance to even come back in the game. And then, yes, he throws the interception. He's not perfect. He is not Mahomes. He is not Russell Wilson. He's not Aaron Rodgers. But he's certainly a great quarterback, and I don't think yesterday's performance would dictate otherwise.
Well, Russell Wilson would have came back from that game, by the way. There's no doubt in my mind. He would have brought them back for sure. And so would have Patrick Mahomes. There's no doubt. Defense or not. But Dak is turning into, he had, and this isn't all on Dak. This is on the offensive mindset of the Dallas Cowboys, because when you have Ezekiel, and granted, this game got away from them pretty quickly, but
yeah,
even the game plan, you could see it from the beginning. They have Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield. He had 12 carries for 54 yards, and then they don't even use him. I mean, he did have 8 receptions, so at least they tried to use him that way. But it just feels like, look at what the Browns did. The Browns set the stage, and the template. Baker Mayfield was only 19 of 30 for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. He wasn't very good. Yet they just ran the ball up and down the field, and they had spectacular plays, obviously from Beckham and Landry.
Mm-hmm.
But Dak Prescott looks like he's turning into the king of garbage time. You're not going to win with Dak Prescott throwing 58 times. You're just not. You can't. You're
not going to win with most quarterbacks throwing 58 times. You're not winning with what happened yesterday with the Cowboys.
Yes. I agree.
So I don't think it's a Dak thing. It's fair. Maybe Mahomes or Russell Wilson brings them back. I don't think so, because when your defense gives up 49 points, I'm just curious how many players have won games where their team gave up 49 points. Probably not too many.
Not many. But I just think that the yards. The yards is impressive, but if we look at kind of the last few years, Jameis Winston was he threw 5,000 yards in 2019, and look where he was.
He also threw 30 interceptions. I don't think Dak's on pace for 30 interceptions either.
No, but he threw 2 interceptions that were crucial in crucial time periods. One against the Seahawks at the very end that could have won the game, and then against granted they probably still wouldn't have won this game, but it certainly would have been a little closer if he had not thrown an interception at the end. Maybe they could have, they got one miracle against Atlanta already. And honestly, take away that game in Atlanta, and they're 0-4 right now.
Yes.
It's, and that's not the Cowboys didn't win that game. The Atlanta Falcons just boneheadedly lost it. So
that's fair. All fair.
It's starting to seem pretty apparent that, as good as CeeDee Lamb looks, maybe that first-round draft pick would have been better served with anyone on the defense.
Well, we were critical of the draft pick when it happened. As much as we liked his talent, we decided it didn't seem like it made sense for them. So,
yeah. So, all right, that's the second story of the week. Third story of the week, speaking of underachieving Texan-based NFL teams, that leads us to the other pathetic team in Texas. The Houston Texans are 0-4 after a 31-23 loss to the now 1-3 Minnesota Vikings which led us to the firing of Bill O'Brien. Now, did Bill O'Brien get fired as a head coach and retained as a GM, or they just cut him loose altogether? I actually didn't see that because
he was fired as head coach, GM, president, fan club member.
I actually think Bill O'Brien, the GM, is not a bad guy. I think Bill O'Brien, the coach, is just hopelessly inept. And the Texans again. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like they seem like they have all this talent, from top to bottom, and they just can't put it together. I mean, I hear about how great Deshaun Watson is all the time, and it's hard to see it.
Yeah, I will say that I think I'm starting to feel like the way you feel about Dak is kind of the way I'm starting to feel about Deshaun Watson being a little bit overrated.
Yeah,
kind of like a good quarterback. But I think, one, to just quickly touch on the quarterback, I think what we're seeing is that there's clearly a first tier of NFL quarterbacks, and then like the second tier, you can just skip it. It's like a first tier, then it just goes straight to the third tier because there's definitely a gap between these upper echelon guys and the other guys. As far as Bill O'Brien, I actually think he was not bad. Actually, as a head coach, I think he's better than he was as a GM. That some of the moves, whether we're talking about the trade for Laramie Tunsil, the trading away DeAndre Hopkins, some of these moves were just bad decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
You look at, you made got to the playoffs in 2018, got to the playoffs in 2019. He's been okay. He hasn't been like this amazing head coach, but he's been okay. But it was time. You get to lose to a winless Vikings team that looked like they couldn't do anything right. It's just kind of the final straw. But I think he had 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff appearances in 6 years or in 8 years. That's not all, or 7 years. I'm sorry. That's not awful, but questionable decisions. It was time. It was time for him to go.
And and we forget that. I mean, they were up 24-0 against the Super Bowl champs last year playoffs, and then in Atlanta like Falcons fashion, they just completely collapsed again. And that narrative could have changed very differently if they had been able to at least hold on to some semblance of a lead in that game. But
go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I was going to say to your point. I think trading away DeAndre Hopkins was kind of the nail in the coffin for Bill O'Brien.
Well, it's like you better be right. You're going to trade away DeAndre Hopkins. You better be getting off to at least a 2-2 start.
Yeah, and then with they got Brandon Cooks. I mean, they essentially have 3 of the same guy. I mean, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills are all essentially the same player. I mean, Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills almost had the exact same stat line. They both had 2 receptions, 39 and 36 yards, and Stills caught a touchdown. Brandon Cooks had nothing, so I don't even know if he was active for this game. But Will Fuller's the only playmaker on that entire roster, and he had 6 receptions, 108 yards, and touchdown. And Will Fuller, and I'll bring this up, and I mentioned this pre-show, but Will Fuller reminds me of a player of days gone by who was, arguably the biggest impact player on his side of the ball when he played. And the problem was he almost never played, but when he did, it was like a completely different team was on the field. And that player is Bob Sanders of the Indianapolis Colts. Bob Sanders, if you remember, was this little dude who was a safety, and he was a wrecking ball when he was on the field, but he could not stay healthy. And Will Fuller is, I mean, he's like the best player on the field when he's on the field. He's just never on the field.
Yeah, no, we've all seen the talent of Will Fuller be there, and hopefully he can stay healthy. I think he's already missed a game or 2 this season. Brandon Cooks has really been disappointing this year. He actually was on the field all game this past week. I think he ran 40 routes from what I was reading, and Deshaun Watson said basically that I can't believe this would be true. But he said that the Vikings were game planning to stop Brandon Cooks from beating them. And so they took him off the field, like they just shut him down. And they were slanting their defense towards stopping him. I don't see how you're a defensive coordinator, you're making your game plan, and Brandon Cooks is the guy who you're really worried about. I could be wrong. I mean, he's still a fast guy, but
Well, I mean, who else do you? I mean, you stop David Johnson. I mean, David Johnson can stop himself just fine.
I mean, David Johnson is more effective than Brandon Cooks been this. He's been more effective than Brandon Cooks this season.
Yeah.
Will Fuller would have been the guy I would have picked if I was going to pick one of them, one of the players on their team. But David Johnson's been probably the second or third best offensive player on their team.
That's saying something.
Yeah,
you're not wrong. As far as the Vikings, I mean, I think the Kirk Cousins project kind of feels like it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And enough with Russell Wilson. Let Dalvin cook. How about that? Let's have that be a saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook is fantastic, and he had 27 carries, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was a force in this game. Him and Justin Jefferson, I think. Adam Thielen, you kind of just take him for granted, but he had another 100-yard game, and he's still amazing. But Justin Jefferson emerging as just a force between him and Dalvin Cook. I mean, I think that's the game plan. Dalvin Cook sets up play action, and you have 2 receivers who can benefit off that play action, and you have to limit Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's not. I almost wish you could flip the quarterbacks in these teams and put Kirk Cousins on the Texans and then put Deshaun Watson on the Vikings and kind of just see how things might be different.
That's actually a really good point. And Dalvin Cook, we see in this era where running backs are just kind of marginalized and passed aside. Dalvin Cook to me is one of the truly special running backs in the NFL where I just don't think you can just find a replacement for him on the street. Like, he's that good. Like, you're not just, we'll just draft someone in the 3rd round. No, you're not getting Dalvin Cook. Like, that's how good he is. As far as Adam Thielen, I think he's kind of turned into that classic possession type receiver, where now you have Justin Jefferson, a guy who I've loved since he was in college, just stretching the field, and they look like they are a good quarterback away from being competitive. It's a shame that good quarterbacks just don't grow on trees. So I don't really know who the Kirk Cousins era might be over. I just don't know who's replacing him.
I mean, I don't know. I keep hearing rumors that the Falcons are going to just tank and get rid of Matt Ryan. The Vikings might be interested because they're ready to win now. Who knows?
Did you see Matt Ryan on Monday Night Football? He looked terrible. He looked washed. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I know he had no Julio Jones out there, but I was just I was like, is that Matt Ryan? Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, Matt Ryan. I just feel like Matt Ryan is sort of. He kind of reminds me of Kurt Warner in a way when he was on the Giants. Obviously, it's a different apples to oranges in a way, but I feel like he just needs a change. A change of scenery, a change of pace, a change of offense, just kind of or to reunite with Kyle Shanahan, because that was when he was at his best. And obviously we're seeing Kyle Shanahan was the brains behind that talent, but it's I think Matt Ryan just would benefit from a change of scenery, because it seems like it's something is not working in Atlanta, and it's affecting everybody.
Yeah, fair point.
So, the 4th. So we're at our NFL. We're top 5 stories of the week, and number 4, the Seahawks and Packers are the last 2 undefeated teams in the NFC, and they look like it. And these teams, I mean, the Seahawks had a little trouble against the Dolphins, which, I'm not surprised, because the Dolphins are kind of that gritty, they sort of seem like they revel in the underdog story. And granted, Seattle to Miami is the longest travel that any team really has to do outside of maybe London, but in the continental U.S., that's the longest flight you're going to take. The Seahawks did well, obviously. Russell Wilson, average for him, I guess, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. And I don't know what to say. I mean, they're just rolling. It's working. And there's 2. So let me see if you can get this. There are 2 references that the Seahawks made with the win this year to the 2013 Super Bowl team.
2 references.
So, it's kind of a weirdly phrased thing, so I'll just tell you. They're 4-0 for the first time since 2013.
Okay.
And with, I think, 16 touchdown passes in the first 4 games, Russell Wilson tied none other than Peyton Manning, who the Seahawks beat in 2013 for most touchdowns through four games.
Well, Russell Wilson is on a mission to win MVP and lead his team potentially to the Super Bowl. I think we're talking about the NFC Championship game right here because I don't think there's a team that is close to the Packers or the Seahawks right now. It feels like it's the Packers or the Seahawks, however you want to rank them, and then there's a large gap. I don't even know who I would put as the third team in the NFC right now. It just that's how far away everyone else seems. It seems like it's those two, and then kind of a mess between 3 to 7 at that point. And then Aaron Rodgers, I'm just gonna say it again. I'm sorry. I didn't know that you still had this in you. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings, Aaron. But last year, I didn't see this. I didn't see the same zip on the ball I'm seeing now. I didn't see the same accuracy, the same decisiveness, the same magic. And what I realized is I saw an Aaron Rodgers quote. He said, "A down year for me is like a career year for other guys." And I have to remember that he's that good. That, oh gosh, he only had 25 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Oh, he's washed. And it's you have to remember that sometimes the touchdowns just don't come. That there's a variability there. As you pointed out last week, it was his first year in a new offense. This is year 2.
Aaron Jones did lead the league in rushing touchdowns last year. So a lot of those passing touchdowns were runs at the goal line. So
no, that's a fair point. So they're head and shoulders better than anyone in NFC, and I think we're looking at the two representatives in the NFC Championship game, one quarter of the way through the season. That is.
Yeah, I think if the 49ers can get healthy, I think that they'll be a force. Obviously, without Bosa for the year, that's going to affect them a bit because he was just a wrecking ball to the Packers last year, and they were embarrassed by the Niners twice. But Aaron Rodgers, I kept thinking, watching that game against the Falcons, it never felt like the Packers were not in control of the game. Like, it just felt like from the moment the game started, the Packers were just in charge, and they were just not going to let up. Granted that the Falcons were without Julio Jones for most of the game. Their secondary is just, I'm going to start for the Falcons secondary pretty soon.
It felt like it was a varsity versus junior varsity to me. That's what I was watching.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers 4 touchdown passes, 27 of 33. That's just stupid. Aaron Jones, kind of okay game. Jamal Williams really showed up. He had 8 receptions, 95 yards, 8. He only had 8 carries, but 8 receptions for almost 100 yards receiving. That's crazy. And the thing that I kept thinking, though, every time, and this has happened a couple weeks in a row for the Packers, I'm curious what would have happened if they had not drafted Jordan Love in the draft this year. Because Aaron Rodgers obviously not short on confidence by that quote that you just said, obviously. So he has, he plays better with a chip on his shoulder and when he has something to prove. So I don't know if the Jordan Love draft really did kind of light a fire under his butt, or if Aaron Rodgers, and they were out without Allen Lazard in this game too, so Marquez Valdez-Scantling was their number one receiver, which is just kind of funny in a way. But if they had just any of those top flight wide receivers that they could have had a chance at between Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, you name it, CeeDee Lamb possibly, Chase Claypool, anybody else on that field, I wonder how much more dangerous the Packers really could be at this point. And it's hard to believe because, at 4-0, it's like you can't be better, but they might actually be better.
Yeah. No, it's a shame. It's kind of a lost opportunity to turn a really good team into a potentially elite team. So even if they got an offensive lineman, even if you just add to the offensive line, doesn't have to be a skill position.
Pretty much anybody but a backup quarterback who's just going to hold a clipboard most of the year.
And a third-string running back in the second round.
Yeah. Running back I could almost forgive because it's such a volatile, injury-prone position that maybe you could make a case that it's good insurance. But a backup quarterback who's unproven, it just seems like a waste of a pick, especially when you reach for him. But all right, so the last top 5 of our top 5 story is actually the team that was rumored to want Jordan Love and was going to reach for him, so that's why the Packers jumped up to get him. The Colts advanced to 3-1 after beating the unbeaten Nick Foles-led Bears 19-11. And this game, I mean, this is a sneaky good game that I thought that these teams were very, very evenly matched. And, Nick Foles, we saw a little of the magic run out, I think. But it also, the Indianapolis Colts, our defense is underrated, and they might be the best defense in football right now.
They absolutely are the best defense in football, and they're giving up 14 points per game, which is what I like to use. I know that some people use total defense, but I like to just use points per game. 14 points per game. Next closest person, surprisingly, and it's scary, or the next closest team are the Chiefs at 17.5 points per game, which is just frightening how good their team could be this year. But yeah, no, the Colts look great on defense, and they're kind of carrying a subpar offense right now. They got the win, and so I don't want to throw water on it, but it just the offense doesn't look very special this year. It looks like they're asking. You talked about Matt Ryan going someplace to make a final run, and I just thought about how much better I think the Colts would be if they had Matt Ryan rather than Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I agree. And Nick Foles, what did you call him? He's Cinderella? Is that,
that was what I said. Yeah, I mean, that's what it just seems like. He was, we all thought he was this, or not all of us, but many of us thought that he was this great starting quarterback, just destined. And I don't want to take away the year that he had with Chip Kelly. I think he was 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, something like that. It just feels like one day his fairy godmother found him, came to him and said, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to be a starting NFL quarterback. And she waved her wand and said, okay, well, I'll give you about 10 games. And he had a magical run for the Philadelphia Eagles, got to the Super Bowl, won Super Bowl MVP. And ever since then, teams have been trying to turn him into a starting quarterback. And he is not a starting quarterback. He is a very quality backup quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with being a high-quality backup quarterback. Just ask Brian Hoyer how if he would like to be as good as Nick Foles. I'm sure that Bill Belichick would have loved to have Nick Foles be the backup quarterback. It's just when you're saying, oh, he's going to be our starter, that's why I don't understand why the Jaguars gave him money last year, and only for him to get beat out by Gardner Minshew. And then this year, you may as well have just stuck with Mitchell Trubisky. What's the point? I don't get it. And I said that from the beginning. I don't understand why they signed him. Why? It's a waste of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cinderella. I mean, midnight or week 4, he turns into a pumpkin. So whatever it is.
Yeah.
He is a high-end quality part-time starting backup quarterback, and I think that the team that he belongs on, quite honestly, is the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's exactly where he should have stayed. And I think that maybe the Eagles are going to, I mean, they won this week, but I don't know. I think that they're going to regret that decision in the coming weeks. And so, yeah, Cinderella, we can henceforth call Nick Foles Cinderella, which reminds me, by the way, actually, the other thing that I want to make a proclamation on is that from this point forward, until I see a significant change, the Cowboys will now be known as the Alice Cowboys because there is no D in Dallas anymore. So they're Alice Cowboys from this point forward. So
I think they get the Giants next week, so you get a chance there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the Giants will score 40 points on them too. So when you hear me say Alice Cowboys, I'm not making a mistake. It's just that there is no D in Big D anymore. So that'll do it for the top 5 stories. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and play our favorite new game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break. So we'll be right back with that and more on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
You can reduce your risk of COVID-19 by cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched items and surfaces every day. These items include remotes, tables, counters, light switches, doorknobs, handles, toilets, and sinks. Wear disposable gloves to clean and disinfect. If you can see that the item is dirty, wash first with soap and water or another general cleaner. Then use a household disinfectant to kill germs. Follow manufacturer's instructions for application and proper ventilation to safely use the product. For phones or other electronics, follow the manufacturer's instructions for cleaning and disinfecting. If no instructions, use alcohol-based wipes or sprays containing at least 70% alcohol. Dry surface thoroughly. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm Lou Ruggieri, that's Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. Show's rolling right along. We covered our top 5 stories in the NFL this season. Coming up next hour, we have to switch gears and talk a little NBA Finals, and then go back to the NFL to do our Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, which is our betting segment of the week. We're going to go through our weekly picks, win-loss, and we're doing pretty good in those 2 respects. We have to look forward to week 4 already because this is a once-a-week show.
Week five.
Or week 5, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have to. We're still
moving along.
Yeah, sorry. It gets away from me. You can follow us along and listen to me get things wrong like that on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. We're on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Apple, the newly formed Amazon podcasting lineup, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at the BW Pod. Our email is thebenchwarmerspodcast at yahoo.com. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. So this segment is known as Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which is our clever way of saying true or false. So we're going to make some statements, and then each one of us is going to react to it, and whether or not we think that it's make no mistake, this is a definitive statement that's going to happen, or give me a break, that's crazy. So without further ado, Jose, would you like to start? Make no mistake or give me a break.
Okay. I'll shoot one at you here.
Go ahead.
The Cowboys will not win the NFC East.
Oh, that's make no mistake. They will not win the NFC East. Okay. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. I think the Cowboys and this isn't just me being kind of a Cowboys fan / hater. I mean, they're underachievers, and we've seen it, with by the grace of the stupidity of the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they'd be winless right now if it was not for the stupidity of the Atlanta Falcons. The Cowboys, and especially with the Eagles somehow pulling out a win against the 49ers, and like I said last week, I'll say it again, that tie that the Eagles got, they're going to be 8-7-1 at the end of the year, and the Cowboys are going to be 8-8, and the Cowboys are going to lose the division by half a game, and that tie is going to come back to haunt not the Eagles, but the Cowboys.
So I'm going to say give me a break. As the Cowboys are definitely the best team in that division. They lost some games. They haven't played well. It's only 4 games in. They'll get it together. The Cowboys are going to win that division. I
agree that they're the best team in the NFC East. They're just not going to have the best record.
Okay, fair enough. All right, make no mistake or give me a break. Sam Darnold is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, because I talked about this with someone else and they were jumping all over me. I just want to 39 touchdowns, 32 interceptions throughout his career. This season, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, under 60% completion percentage throughout his career, 79.6 quarterback rating. I don't see it. I don't see it. And I say starting because I'm sure he's better than a lot of backup NFL quarterbacks, but
do you count Jarrett Stidham as a starting quarterback?
No.
Do you count Brett Rippon as a starting quarterback?
Sure. I mean, he did just. I guess he started a whole game and actually outplayed Sam Darnold.
Do you count Mitch Trubisky as a starting quarterback?
Yes. Well, not anymore. Mitch is the one who would be the one where it's like he's probably worse.
Sam Darnold is better than Brett Rippon.
Okay.
There's no doubt in my mind that he's better. Do you count Nick Mullins or which is Beathard as a starting quarterback?
No, I don't count either of them. Okay, so we're gonna say, okay, would you rather have Sam Darnold or Teddy Bridgewater?
Teddy Bridgewater.
Same. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones?
What team am I on? My God, I mean that's just.
Or is this just, and also something to consider that in fairness to Sam Darnold, this could just be an Adam Gase thing, right? Because once again, another player, Robbie Anderson, leaves Adam Gase, and now is blowing up on the Panthers. So perhaps is an Adam Gase thing, but either way.
I had that exact same thought. That's so funny you said that, because I was watching Robbie Anderson, and I was like, oh, remember when he was, between him, Jamal Adams, and now we're seeing it in reverse with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, you just go to the Jets to just die. And you know what, the idea that I really thought, on that same vein, what I realized was that, it's not just Adam Gase, but the Jets culture. I mean, if you go back to, Rich Kotite, the 0-16 Jet, or 1-15, whatever they were. Thinking about the Jets culture, I would like to make a case officially that Joe Namath is the greatest quarterback in NFL history. Because if you think of what he had to overcome, look at the ineptitude and the just unbelievably bad play that the Jets just seem to foster from their very core. The fact that Joe Namath was able to beat Johnny Unitas in that game in Super Bowl III, I think on a different team, Joe Namath may have won 10 Super Bowls in a row.
Well, we'll get into this another day. I think Joe Namath is one of the more overrated quarterbacks in NFL history.
Because he's on the Jets, and he did it once. On a different team, he might have been Tom who?
Now, I will say this. The Jets, we remember, it does seem like a long time ago, but they did go to back-to-back AFC Championship games when they had Rex Ryan as their head coach. It did seem like things were going in a different direction. And then I think they had Todd Bowles, and then they hired Adam Gase. Maybe there's someone I'm missing in between. And it's just been a terrible 5 or 6 years for them. Yeah. And but just to answer this, I'm going to just go with it. I'm going to say make no mistake. To me, Sam Darnold's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. And when I say starting, I mean just, a guy who's legit the franchise quarterback, or just is at least either in draft capital or in contract status, the starting quarterback of the team.
Yeah, I'm going to say give me a break. I think if you were to switch Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, I think Sam Darnold would be better on the Browns.
Interesting. Okay.
I just think that Sam Darnold's just, he's just in the worst situation imaginable for a young quarterback.
Hot take there. All right. So next one, make no mistake or give me a break. The Buffalo Bills will face the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
I actually, it's funny. I wrote up some make no mistake or give me a break, and I have that exact same one that I wrote down.
Sorry about that, man.
No, I think it's hilarious. I'm gonna say make no mistake at this point. The Bills, Josh Allen. Speaking of quarterbacks that are under and overrated, Josh Allen has turned a page. It looks like, and he is unbelievable. He's been unbelievable. That team from top to bottom just seems like it doesn't have any real flaws. And I said this preseason when Stephon Diggs went there. Josh Allen, the one thing that he does really well aside from running is throw a deep ball. And Stephon Diggs gives them a legit outside deep threat. And we saw it on Sunday. That looks like there's chemistry building there. Cole Beasley's still underneath. He's got the short white guy inside receiver that we see kind of blow up on different, between Edelman and then Wes Welker and what's his face on the Raiders, Hunter Renfrow.
Yep.
Cole Beasley's right in that same little vein of underneath, twitchy, fast guys. So, and even Devin Singletary, not a great game, but he's coming along, and it just, the Raiders are a good team, and the Bills kind of put them in their place. So, I'm going to say make no mistake. I think the Bills are on a collision course with the Chiefs.
I'm going to say make no mistake. My only hesitation was if I thought they were wondering if they're better than, say, the Steelers or the Patriots or the Ravens. And the Josh Allen looks great. I think about the draft where the Giants took Saquon Barkley, number 2 overall, and I often argued that was the right pick because I didn't think any other quarterbacks that were selected after him, other than Lamar Jackson, were really that good. But Josh Allen looks like he's actually turning into something a bit special, where now it's like he's going to kind of flirt with that top 10, top 8, top 5 quarterback, and their defense is solid. They've got great position players. Yeah, the Bills are for real.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Last one. Phillip Rivers and the Colts will win one postseason game, at least one postseason game.
I'm gonna say give me a break. I think that they're okay, but honestly, I mean Phillip Rivers. I've seen it enough times to know that when the spotlight's on him, he just throws an interception. I mean that's almost a lock. And I think as good as the Colts are around him, I thought maybe this year would be different with a better offensive line and more time to throw. I mean he looks okay, but I don't think that they're gonna. Especially if they get a low seed in the playoffs. I mean, they're going to play one of the better teams in the AFC, and that's not going to. No.
Well, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking too. I'm actually kind of on the fence because I do think the Colts and Phillip Rivers, and I've called them dark horse Super Bowl champions, but I'm concerned that Phillip Rivers' arm is going to fall off before he gets to the end of the season. It just feels like everything is such a struggle, and so he just throws everything underneath. And eventually you're going to get down big and need to not throw it everything 4 and 5 yards. You're going to have to throw the ball down the field into tight windows. And I don't really trust his ability to do that consistently. So I'm going to say give me a break because Phillip Rivers he's not a good enough quarterback. They have a good roster, but he's just not a good enough quarterback at this stage in his career.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually really like that Matt Ryan placement on the I was thinking that the Browns could do really well with Matt Ryan, but yeah, I think the Colts might be even a better fit for him.
Yeah, just the last thought on this, it just kind of hit me. Is Dak Prescott headed for Phillip Rivers? Like, is that the career arc we could see where a guy, maybe he doesn't have the championships, but he does have big numbers, and you kind of question Phillip Rivers' numbers as being somewhat hollow because they don't have championships?
It's possible. I mean, Phillip Rivers did have one of the most talented teams I've ever seen on the field when they went. I think they went 14-2, and then they got bounced in the first round by the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And granted, they did run into that Patriots. I mean, Patriots were essentially like the Michael Jordan of the NFL for a while there, where they just, they were just no one could win. And Phillip Rivers kind of feels like these Patrick Ewing in a way, where it's just like he just kept hitting his head on this. This Patriot-colored ceiling, and Dak is surrounded. There's no argument that you can make that Dak isn't surrounded by talent on the offensive side of the ball. But Phillip Rivers had a much better defense than Dak does right now. But it's possible. Big numbers and nothing to show for it. It's entirely possible.
Okay.
All right, I have just a couple to throw back at you here. So make no mistake or give me a break. Dan Quinn and Adam Gase will join Bill O'Brien from the sidelines and not make it through the season as head coaches.
I'm going to say give me a break just because I think they give Dan Quinn to the end of the year. Adam Gase is gone. I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet. I think Dan Quinn gets, having led them to a Super Bowl, leading them to some competitive seasons. I think they give him the respect to the end of the year and then kind of just say we're parting ways. But Adam Gase, he's going to get fired after this week. Yeah. It's just bad.
I'm going to say make no mistake, I think, but it's contingent on, because Adam Gase is dead man walking. But Dan Quinn, I think if they have one more lead that gets blown, I think that there's no way that Arthur Blank is just not like, come on, man. All right, you're done. Get out.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say make no mistake. Next, Dak Prescott will not be the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys next season.
I'm going to say give me a break because, one, I've been a big proponent of Dak Prescott, but two, I just don't. I think the Cowboys are going to win enough games where they're not going to have a high draft pick or a good draft pick to get a quarterback that's just going to come in and take Dak's place. And I don't think with all the money that they've invested with a running back and at wide receiver with Amari Cooper and in other positions on the team, especially, I just don't see them saying, you know what, we're going to start over with a brand new quarterback and throw a year or two away. So I say, give me a break.
I think I'm going to say, give me a break begrudgingly, but the symptoms are there, that they didn't sign him to a long-term deal. They franchised him this year. And honestly, I think if the Cowboys don't make the playoffs again this season with the amount of talent that's around them, keep in mind, Mike McCarthy's not the one that drafted Dak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's also part of the scenario. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a little closer than it looks. But I think that Jerry's going to cave and pay Dak like he's paid everybody else right now. And it's just, I'm going to say, give me a break but I'm not happy about it.
It's a fair point, though. Just to quickly follow up, but it's a fair point that you bring up, though. If they don't make the playoffs this year, let's say it's a complete disaster and they go 4-12 this year. It wouldn't really be out of the realm of possibility if they say, you know what, Dak, we're not signing you. Zeke, we're trading you. Amari Cooper, we're trading you. And we're going to get rid of all this money. We're going to get draft picks, and we're going to start over and go into full rebuild mode.
Yeah.
That's not out of the realm of possibility.
All right, last one. Jalen Hurts will be the Eagles' starting quarterback before the end of the season. Carson Wentz, for the record, went 18 for 28 for 193 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. They did win the game against the 49ers.
Somehow.
But it was not pretty.
So frustrated by the 49ers losing that game. 49ers should be 4-0. I don't want to get into I'm getting off topic here. I'm going to say give me a break just because it's certainly not before unless it's through injury. I just think that Carson Wentz he's kind of locked into the job. I don't think there's really much he can do to be benched. So I'm going to say give me a break.
I am going to say make no mistake, because more than likely it's going to be because of injury.
Yeah.
Because it feels like Carson Wentz is pressing a little bit and he's still running. And it's probably going to be through injury, but I could also see Doug Peterson kind of wanting to give him a little kick in the rear and just say, look, sorry, man, you're sitting here for a game and just see if maybe that gives him a chance to get his head right. Because, I mean, Peterson's he's an aggressive coach, and he does things that are a little unconventional sometimes. So I could see it happening on one of two ways. But I also really like Jalen Hurts, so maybe that's wishful thinking. So we shall see. But that'll do it for hour number 1. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we have to look forward to Week 5 in the NFL. We have to make our picks. We have to go over our picks from last week. We have to talk our sports betting segment, put your money where your mouth is. And coming up next, we have to switch gears and talk a little NBA Finals and what this series means for LeBron James and his career. So stick around, and we'll come right back on the Benchwarmers podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.